All right. Hey guys. I decided to go live this afternoon and just do a coaching call and catch up. Um, it has been a really long time since I did one of these, and I figured Friday afternoon's good. A lot of you guys are hopefully getting off work or maybe taking a late lunch. And I figured this would be a nice time to sort of get a bunch of things answered for you. It has been a while since I was able to kind of talk freely on different topics rather than planning for the topics, putting them in a video that's all curated and put together. I think it's sometimes a lot nicer to just chat and answer things and have this discussion flowing. So for the next like 20 or so minutes, we'll just kind of chat with each other. And you guys can ask me anything related to training, running, strength training. You can ask me about volume, how much you should be running, when you should be taking breaks, anything you guys want to know as you join. Let me know if you can hear me okay, see me okay, and everything. And then, I'll just kind of take them in the chat here. Perfect. Jade is here. Yeah, I have had a lot going on, like good stuff work-wise and running-wise. I have been getting in a lot of miles, actually, despite me not wanting to race this year. And I'm already signed up for a race this year too. I am doing the Rock and Roll Half in Nashville, I think. I'm not positive yet, but I think I'm going to be doing that, and it'll be more for fun. So as you guys have questions, you can just drop them in the chat. Otherwise, I had a couple topics prepared that I've been thinking about more recently and things my clients are currently going through that I thought would be helpful to you guys. So first things first, I want to talk about running shoes. This is a topic recently. I feel like a lot of shoes are out there now to the point where people don't know where to start and what to look for in their running shoes. And I want to be super clear that your running shoe is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to be the answer to a habitual thing that you do when you go out and run. So for example, if you're still working on dialing in that run form and figuring out how to run long term without getting hurt, you're still dealing with shin pain. I just did a video on that. Other types of low back pain, quads, knees, all that stuff. You're not going to go into a running store, pick out a shoe, and then that problem's gone. It's starting from a much deeper place, something that you're doing as you run. The shoe should help enhance good form and almost feel like an extension of your body. So what I've noticed, and I'm the biggest Hoka fan in the world, but there's so many options now. We have to remember they are a business, so they're coming out with new shoes all the time. But with Hokas, a lot of you guys have complained about a really high instep to the shoe, like super structured and super thick on under the arch. And that can feel, one, it can rub, just blister problems, but also it can make it so that you can't fully lay your foot flat when you land. So it feels like you're fighting this mountain in the middle. And for example, someone I had this morning was talking to me about his outer shin is now so tired all the time because it's doing this rocking motion the whole time that he runs in these shoes. So it's good to try things out. It's good to rotate through different shoes. You should be ordering or going to a place where you can try things out. And then if you don't like it, you can return it after several runs. I really only buy from places like that. I think running warehouses like this, a lot of the big brands can be, but it's a little bit more finicky. Honestly, Nordstrom sells a good bit of running shoes and they take anything back. Dick's Sporting Goods should be a good option. Fleet Feet, I'm not sure the policy. I think they have to really look unworn, but do your research and try shoes out for sure. But they shouldn't be the only thing that you in your mind think will fix a pain on your body. So as you guys are joining the live here, just go ahead and drop any comments, questions, anything you want me to talk about today. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep running through some topics I had in mind. One thing lately you guys have also been asking about just in the videos and stuff is nutrition and how to eat the right amount of food and not feel sick when you're running. And this is a big one because I know a lot of you guys deal with digestion prior to running and you don't want to feel sick, but you also don't want to feel like you have no energy at all. So actually when I did a video a couple weeks ago, you guys told me a lot of you run fasted. Totally understand that. I actually do a good number of workouts fasted as well. This is not something I would fight. This is obviously like, especially if you're getting up first thing in the morning, you don't want to have to go get up earlier, figure out a whole breakfast, go plan that out, and then digest and then go run. I understand. I would just say anything, I meant to put this in the video, anything over an hour, if you are doing it fasted, I would bring calories with you. So after that hour mark, you are getting the calories in to sustain where you're at from then, and you're not just totally going downhill depleted, such that when you get back from that workout, you're completely smoked and exhausted, and now catching up the rest of the day, probably overeating almost to compensate. So that's one of the biggest things I've seen. And then also, you guys have talked a lot about cramping, and the cramping stuff can get really bad in the summer for sure. Water doesn't cut it. Oftentimes we're sweating so much more than we normally do, at least that we perceive that we are. And so when we're sweating so much and we're losing so much fluid, it's very easy to get imbalanced there on the electrolytes. We'll notice really extreme fatigue, especially after you're done working out. You can notice actually in the salt content of your sweat when you're really depleted, or there's certain imbalanced levels of how you're maintaining the electrolytes in your body. When you're super over or underhydrated, you'll notice that. You don't want to have that sloshing feeling. Electrolytes can help balance that out too. So those are really important. But I will start answering some questions now as you guys come in here. So Jade says, I'm training to run a half marathon, new runner, also on a weight loss journey as I am 50 pounds overweight. This is getting challenging to manage since the more I run, the bigger my appetite. Is there advice? I lost 25 pounds in the last 7 months, making good progress. That's really awesome. Congratulations. There's nothing better than the feeling of follow through. You actually doing what you said you were going to do and getting weight off, even in subcapacity, even if you have a larger goal. So it is so tough when you get into running and you are starving all the time. It's important to note that your body is, I like the term set point. Your body knows some level of medium or stability, or this feels normal to me. And this can fluctuate. Obviously, as we get older, that can be different. We can feel like we require more calories. We can actually require more calories, etc. When you start running and you might have come from a total sedentary lifestyle, your body's now freaking out because you are depleting the calorie store it has at a much higher rate. So we're no longer just dealing with the metabolic burn just at your resting state. You're now adding activity to that at a higher heart rate. You're breathing heavier. Obviously, you're sweating, heart rate's up and things like that, which also means after that workout, you're still burning at a higher rate. And then over time, hopefully you've gotten to a nice healthy weight, and then your resting metabolic is you're just higher performing there too. Increasing that with muscle as well. That's a really good thing to add there. So what I would say is you want to listen to your body. You want to eat before and after. You want to do what makes your runs feel the best. You do not want to feel like a vacuum at any point if you can help it. I find that, like, for the example I just gave of if you run fasted in the morning and you don't bring calories and because your run's longer than an hour, and say you run 2 hours fasted and you get back, you might find yourself reaching for anything you can find for the next 3 or 4 hours. And I find that if you were to kind of calorie count that and you were in the goal of weight loss, as Jade's saying, you're probably way, way overdoing what you actually burned on the run. And it really could have been managed had you made it a little bit more similar throughout the run and after in how you felt. Like you weren't so depleted and so up and then so down. If you can find stability through that, some way to maintain energy and calories, even if it's small bites here and there, you'll do a better job of making better choices after the run. So that's one thing. Number 2, protein is so much more filling. It really, really helps you feel like you're more full. And then I love to use veggies and just higher fiber foods as fillers to make myself, they call it kind of like high volume eating, but increasing the amount of food you are having on your plate, but healthy stuff that's not so calorie dense. That can also help kind of fill in the holes there. But keep making the best choices you can. 80-20 is still a good way to go. I think if you're trying a really extreme, strict diet, while you're trying to run your first marathon, I think you're going to run into some really intense feelings of failure maybe at the beginning, because there's so many areas you can go wrong in and not follow through in. So starting small and then building from there. You want to find a diet that just feels natural to you, that actually gives you energy and is not making you put on weight. I usually go off of clothes if you feel like things are getting tight, and not from a muscular standpoint, but from a weight gain standpoint. Adding inches or whatever, just use that to take note. If you guys are just joining us, I'm so glad to be talking to you today. We're doing live Q&A, answering coaching questions for the next 15 minutes or so. So I'm going to answer here. Steven said, is there anything in your content or on the net regarding the mechanics of running? I was a heel striker and switched to the pose method when I started CrossFit, but I find myself switching up while running long distances, 50K. Okay, so I definitely have done a good bit of videos. I don't quite do like some of them I've done a full how-to top to bottom, but a lot of them I kind of incorporate it into other concepts just to remind you guys how to run. I'm a huge fan of pose running. That is basically everything that I coach. If you're unfamiliar, it's basically picking your feet up right under your hips versus reaching out to either strike with the heel or strike with the toe. I find it's kind of unrealistic to determine how you run based on how your foot hits the ground. I think the foot should be an extension of what's happening from your hips down. So if you set yourself up in a good, strong position, hips are forward, you're actually able to use the glutes and hamstrings and quads to land and take the impact that way. The feet will follow. Small, quick steps, higher cadence. The reason we like higher cadence is you're landing for less time per step. So when you can increase the number of steps you're taking really quick up off the ground, you're not getting that time to sink into the hips, etc. So I would say the mechanics come down to what feels like it's most sustainable over time. So heel striking is not necessarily bad in itself, but over miles and miles and miles, you do end up landing in a way that really impacts the shin and lower leg, especially if you're on harder terrain and heavier. That's another thing too we have to account for. If you are someone in the weight loss category as you get into running, it is even more important that you run well, but everyone should be running well. Back to the shoe conversation a little bit. I do like Hoka's, especially for newer runners who are trying to lose weight at the same time. I do think the way that they cushion their shoes and the pushback you get, that spring back, is a really nice way to feel more confident earlier on in your running journey. So hopefully that helps. Let's see here. Caitlin says, what do you suggest as weekly mileage for a 50 miler or 100 miler? I've done a few 50Ks and my peak weeks are around 50 per week. I'm wondering what it'll take if I set my sights on a bigger goal. So that would be about what I would say is pretty standard, 50 a week. It comes down to, I would love to know what your daily life is outside of training, because for somebody who's on their feet a lot outside of training, if their job's very active, I wouldn't go much over that, because in your ultra training, you have to remember that time on feet is your best asset. Getting really comfortable and strong on time on feet, really being able to do things for a really long time and not breaking down is the key. The other thing too is if you are so numbers focused and weeks change, you might get a little bit in your head. So I always remind people, you want running to be flexible around you, not the other way around. You are not married to your run goal. That can't be the pinnacle of your whole life. It's part of it, but it's not everything. So 50 is a good place to, I think, stick around. But if it drops below or goes above sometimes, just make sure you're properly addressing that. If you are doing things to lead up to a 50 miler, so 50Ks, as she's saying, I would definitely do little peaks and valleys for your training, build for like 5 weeks, come down for 1 to 2, come back up, et cetera. Especially if you're training like a whole year for 100, like I did last year, I would build pretty strong, do a couple back-to-back long ones, and then I'd come off for a little bit and then build back up and come back off. And I felt like that was a healthy way to check in with my body before I'd done too much too fast. So hopefully that helps. Again, guys, if you have other questions related to really anything, this doesn't have to be running either. We can talk about strength training. We can also talk about motivation if anyone's feeling low or feeling like they were really strong at the beginning of the year. We all had the New Year's resolutions and things are falling off. I've been wanting to make a video about that too. It's so hard to keep showing up for yourself sometimes when it feels like, what's the point? Or like it gets too big picture, or your race is 5 months away and it feels like, doesn't matter if I take a few weeks off now because, maybe that'll be the reset I need. And suddenly it's not even in your routine anymore. I think it's really cool. Boston is literally Monday. As you guys may or may not know, I am not the biggest, like my run journey has not been about speed. It's been more about distance and just testing my endurance. But I so love the Boston Marathon. I think it's so cool. I got to go a couple of years ago for work, and it was amazing seeing that culture, seeing how hard everybody worked just to get into the race itself, and then to actually have a good race day too. There's so many components to it. So lots of people I'll be following on Monday, and I'm super excited about that. Okay. Vanessa says, my physio says I have weak glutes, starting on rehab exercises and adjusted my running form so I'm not running on my toes. That's great. Shin splints. Anything else I should consider? Thanks. Yes. Last piece to solving that problem would be mobilizing your ankles. Make sure your ankles are super taken care of as if you were stretching your quads, your calves. You want your ankles to feel super mobile in a full 360 range of motion. So a good way to do that is adding pressure points, whether it's with literally a little mobility ball or the edge of your foam roller, and then just doing circles, flex and point with that pinpointed. So adding pressure and then moving around it, and that gets some nice mobility all into the ankle joint. What that's going to allow is your full foot to land and get your weight back a little bit, like you said, off your toes, paired with strong glutes. You're now going to be able to trust your body weight to fall right down the center. And like I said, with hips forward, it's pretty much a game-winning solution. It takes a while to get there. I would also say weak glutes, specify if you are going to PT glute meads, you really want that kind of back corner of your glute. That's where a lot of us break down. I found out when I had a bad hip injury, my glute meads basically did not exist. I couldn't hold some of the exercises for longer than 20 seconds, which really surprised me because I have really strong quads, really strong larger muscles, but that particular area I had not focused on, and it changed the game for me. Hopefully that helps. Joshua said, I did my first ultra last weekend. Congrats. That's awesome. 50K in 8 hours of mud. Oh my God, I've been there. Best recovery after my calves were swollen and sore. Do you have a go-to routine for the days after that you like to do? Yes. First and foremost, the first day to 1 day to 3 days, depending on your schedule, if you traveled or whatever, I really do whatever the hell I want. Whatever I want, I just do that. Move if I feel like it, don't move if I don't feel like it. I do find that a little bit of blood flow, a little bit of walking, which kind of by nature of your life, you're going to have anyway. If you're walking even into a restaurant or your hotel, you're walking. That is a good way to get a little bit of things going. The other thing is I love legs up the wall, getting blood flow out of the feet. That's another way to kind of do a no nonsense recovery that you don't even have to put any effort into. Do like 10 minutes or so to start, and then you can go from there. Your feet might be numb the longer you go, but it is a really nice tool to just kind of reverse the inflammation. Other than that, I would say as you come back to running, be patient with yourself. It's very easy to overdo it quickly because you technically feel in the condition you were in, obviously, to complete that ultra. But you'd be surprised, especially in your first couple of ultra finishes, it takes a while to come back to homeostasis. Certain things are tired and overworked, and your body now almost goes into a little bit of fight or flight as you get back into running. It's wondering if you're going to go do that same thing you just did. I've found that with myself. Even in my appetite, I've had times where I'm not hungry at all after the race, and I've had times where I was ravenous for like 2 weeks after. So again, just managing those feelings. If you feel really up and down in your energy, you just probably need more sleep and recovery. Hopefully that helps. Okay. I have signed up for the 100 miles of the Berlin Wall in August. That's awesome. I've only run a marathon a few years ago, and at the moment, I am just building my base with quite low mileage still. I am running a flat trail half on Sunday and planning to run a mountain marathon on June 1st. Is that enough before in August? How big should my mileage be before I taper? So I'll just kind of answer this generally so it can apply to kind of everyone. That sounds like an amazing opportunity. You want to know how you feel and perform when you're really tired. That is the main goal there. You want to know your body well. You want to know when things break down, do I have a tool mentally or physically to get through those moments? And you won't know that until you go through those moments, but you don't necessarily have to do any certain high percentage that's close enough to the mileage you'll be doing just for peace of mind. I think a lot of people get anxious in that way. And I think it's why a lot of people don't understand when I say 100 miles from a 50 miler isn't too big of a difference. You're just awake longer. It's kind of the same concept though. Are you going to be feeling fresh after 40 miles? No. And that's the case for both of those. But the more tools you have and the good support you have in strength, in muscle, and good form, you have a recipe to last the whole time. So I would say build a weekly mileage schedule that accommodates, the rest of your life. Do some really heavy back-to-back days. I think the races you're doing are great. Maybe on one of them, plan a long run for the day after. Total opposite of what I just told Joshua about recovering from 50K. In this case, maybe use those races to then double up the day after to just practice working on tired legs. Hopefully that will help. Good luck. All right, guys, I'm going to do 2 more questions, and then I am actually going to go be on a podcast, which I will share with you guys in a bit. Okay, so let's see. I struggle with one of my feet going numb on long runs. This is funny. I actually meant to talk about this with the shoe conversation earlier. This keeps happening to people, this and black toenails. He said, I have tried different shoes, even shoe sizes. It still happens. Any suggestions or possible reasons? Anytime you have numbness, my first go-to is what is tight above that area. So similar to what I was prescribing for the glutes, like just looser ankles just makes a world of difference in how you land and take impact when you run. I would practice good self-massage up the outsides of your shins, even back into the lower calf. Use your thumbs or foam roller, mobility balls, get a massage, whatever. And I would really work on the bottom of your feet. So rolling out the bottom of your feet, stretching, some towel scrunches, some really good strength work, barefoot when you can at home, even balancing, you're brushing your teeth, balancing barefoot on one leg, just getting tactile in the bottom of your foot. I've noticed that kind of wakes things up and strengthens against whatever is kind of closed off and shutting it down to get numb. There's obviously a blockage or tightness of some kind. Compare it a lot to like tightness up here. We're all hunched over the computer all day. A lot of people start to get numbness, the carpal tunnel, all of that. If things are looser and strong at the same time, we usually have better results there. So try that. As far as shoe sizes, if you're not getting difference in different sizes, you've already tried that. I guess I would say one option could be more of like a total nothing shoe, like a Vibram or something like that. Maybe ultra zero drop, at least giving a little bit more space to land. It'll just force your legs and feet to do a little bit more work, which I think in the long run will take that numbness away. But try things out. As far as black toenails, this is one I'm trying to figure out. It is so weird, especially when we don't feel our feet slamming into the shoe. It's hard to determine what is causing this, because for some people, they are really laced up too tight. And for some people, they just have poor blood flow, in the lower legs. And a lot of things can be happening to cause these problems, but if we can't fight it and the toenails keep coming off and we keep having numbness and everything like that, it doesn't feel like we can go longer than we already are. So maybe worth going to a doctor as well, but start with the actual, anatomy of your foot and the strength of that foot, barefoot as much as you can. And I even have been telling people, do a little filming running at the camera and then a back away. Just set your phone up barefoot and see what your feet are doing when they even land, because our shoes cover up a lot of things. So this has been great, guys. Thank you so much for asking all the questions. I hope to do this again soon. And I love you guys. Thank you for watching the channel. Thank you for subscribing and being here. It really means the world. And I can't wait to make more. I will see you guys soon. Have a good weekend.